How many of you have heard the estimate that one language goes extinct, meaning nobody speaks it anymore, every 2 weeks? Have any of you heard of that? No? Okay, well, how many of you would care that a language goes extinct every 2 weeks? I got a tough crowd today. Well, learning languages is a passion of mine. I am self-taught on Duolingo and currently study around 10, although I only speak English fluently. I find endangered languages particularly interesting and hope to impart some of my passion to you through the speech. Protecting endangered languages is important, and you, all of you, can help. If one person in every state in the U.S. started studying a foreign language, we could preserve 50 languages for another century. So in this speech, we're going to talk about some facts about language extinction, including why it happens and how often, why endangered languages are important, and what you can do to help preserve them. So to begin, let's observe some facts about language extinction. Sorry, my file likes to compress after I submit it, so the text gets a little pushed out. Alright, so as mentioned, language extinction occurs when nobody speaks a certain language anymore. An extensive 2022 report by Lindo Bromham et al. In the Nature, Ecology, and Evolution Journal offers some statistics. About half of the world's 7,000 languages are considered endangered. And I do have a chart up here. It's a little hard to see, but there are almost 700 languages in Asia alone. Papua New Guinea has over 800. There's a huge distribution all around the globe. 90% of languages might be extinct within a century. That means just 100 years from now, humans might only speak 700 languages, whereas we have 7,000 right now. In 2019, George Roche in the Patterns of Prejudice Journal explains some causes of language extinction. The first is colonialism. Sometimes one group of people moves to a different place and they force the natives to stop using their own language and use the settlers' language instead. Another cause is genocide. Historically, certain cultural groups have been targeted with the intention of rendering them extinct. Oftentimes, with the loss of a people group comes the loss of language. Another cause is disease. This was very prevalent among Native Americans. And globalism, or making the world smaller. People tend to want to learn bigger, more widely spoken international languages instead of the less commonly spoken minority languages. Okay, to transition to the second point on the value of protecting endangered languages, I want to tell you a story. It's about a woman named Katrina Esau from South Africa's Northern Cape. Her native language is one of South Africa's oldest. It was spoken by South Africa's oldest ethnic group, the San people. Okay, the language is called Ooh. That's an N sound, a click. You put your tongue against the back of your teeth and suck downwards. And Ooh, okay? So this is Katrina Esau's native language. As a child, she stopped speaking it because people told her it was ugly. She was also forced to stop speaking it during apartheid and colonialism. She was made to use Afrikaans instead. However, she continued to use Ooh at home with her family. Fast forward 80 years. The world thinks this, one of South Africa's oldest languages, is extinct. Then it was discovered that Katrina Esau and about 20 other people still spoke it. Today, Katrina Esau is the only surviving native speaker of Ooh, also the only surviving fluent speaker, and she has dedicated her life to preserving this language. She's converted her house into a school. She's been on the news raising awareness. She's made many hours of recordings and helped make a dictionary. She herself never learned to read or write, but she was able to narrate a story, The Tortoise and the Ostrich, and it was written down in English, Afrikaans, and okay. So why does it matter so much to her? Why does she care that this language stays alive? Hopefully, after reviewing the second point on the value of protecting endangered languages, have more understanding for her position, and hopefully share her position as well. Alright, one simple reason why it's important to protect endangered languages is the simple fact that these languages matter to the people who speak them. I just told you about Katrina Esau. This is her life's work now, protecting this language. I've also been able to speak to a native Cherokee Indian and question him about his language, and what he told me correlates with some research that I've done, including a report by Amy Lewis, in 2020, to not dot. Alright, there's a ring of elders in the Cherokee Nation, and they dedicate themselves to learning their language. And the Cherokee language has been through many centuries of oppression, the 12 Tiers, if any of you have heard of that. The language has been on the verge of extinction for centuries, and these elders are devoted to keeping it alive and teaching it. It is a central portion of their culture and their heritage. It matters very much so. Alright, another reason. Many native languages preserve oral history. I know if I say native languages, if I say Native Americans, one of the things you're going to think of is stories. They're oral stories. Many of these stories cannot be translated properly into other languages, There's an article about this on the website, All Good Tales. There's no author or date attributed to it, but I last accessed it yesterday on November 12th. And finally, we can have more compassion for other people around the world, especially since, as the UNDESA, this is the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, they reported in 2023 that most endangered languages are indigenous. So finally, I'm going to give you, really quickly, the language protection policy. 3 steps you can take to help preserve endangered languages. First, find a language that interests you. Don't choose Irish Gaelic just because you hear about it more. Don't choose Yiddish just because it's on Duolingo. Choose something that your ancestors spoke. Choose something that you've always been interested in. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be moribund. It doesn't need to be like, with just one native speaker. It can still have hundreds of speakers, but you have to choose something that interests you personally, or else you're not going to care any longer. Next, find ways to study. So I've listed some language learning apps. I use Duolingo personally. 7,000 Languages I wasn't a fan of, Transparent Language is one I tried, but they have over 100 languages on there. 7,000 Languages is for Native American indigenous languages. Online study groups and forums. I'm sure if any of you have Reddit or Discord or any of these apps, you can probably find people who will join you in learning this language. And travel and immersion initiatives. This is the most difficult way to learn, but there are groups who offer opportunities to immerse yourself in these endangered languages. Finally, keep yourself motivated while inspiring others. So if you're an artist, you can make artwork, and culturally sensitive artwork, and include the language in your art. If you write songs, try writing a song in your language. Social media, post a word of the day. Go travel. Alright. Emma Stevens here. This is the cover of her album. She sung Blackbird and her indigenous Mi'kmaq language. Very beautiful. Bill Ferro sings in the endangered Catala language, which also has a fascinating history. And Hanapacha Kusikwini, this is in the Quechua language. It also has a beautiful history, but unfortunately I don't have time to tell you more about any of these songs. Alright, so to conclude, we talked about facts about language extinction. About half of the world's languages are considered endangered, and 90% of our languages might be extinct within a century. Top causes of language extinction are colonialism, globalism, disease, and genocide. And we talked about Katrina Esau and her language, and I should put that on the slide. It's a little tricky to spell. And it's valuable to protect endangered languages because they matter to the people who speak them. They preserve oral history, which can't always be translated well into other languages. And we can learn compassion for other cultures by learning these languages. 3-step policy: find a language that interests you, find ways to study it, and keep yourself motivated and inspire others. So please, learn an endangered language. Thank you. Okay, how far over time was I?